Okay, so I'm just here with Stacey NoYeahNo and also Jason Warlock, and just going to be talking to them a little bit about their history in the sort of rave party scene of London. I've known them both for quite a few years, Stacey in particular because she's my sister. Also Jason I've known for many years, and they've been involved in various strands of underground music in London, from doing early pirate radio, early 90s, late 80s sort of thing, to DJing all over the place, running a respected record label, Rag and Bone Records, and yeah, being involved with all different parts of the party scene in London. So yeah, just going to have a little informal chat today. Just starting off, just give us a little bit about your early sort of memories of music, like where you grew up, and some of the first music that you sort of really sort of listened that had an effect on you.
We should toss the coin.
Yeah, we should have tossed a coin. I'm South London, grew up in South London.
Yeah.
Some would say fortunately and some would say unfortunately. For me, I guess for linking it to sort of early interest in music, it was sort of electronic music really. My brother, who's obviously talking to me now,
Yeah, that's me.
was a few years older than me, and he used to come home like with loads of, or you used to come home,
Yeah.
with loads of records when I was quite, not that young, but maybe like 12 or something like that. And I remember hearing kind of old.
Do you remember what some of them were?
Well, I remember there were electro records, so things like Nucleus and Egyptian. No, what's it called? Captain Rock.
Yeah.
Things like that, and they were just sounded like the most bizarre records I'd ever heard at the time. And as a kid, they're quite kiddie tunes, really.
Yeah, no,
just
electro
that kind of,
had that sort of cartoon.
It had that cartoon kind of sound, didn't it? So so they sounded really interesting. Wiki, yeah. But at the same time, I wasn't hearing them anywhere else. But also I heard a lot of sort of, other pop electronica, so things like Soft Cell or Human League.
Yeah.
And that was just the backdrop to your youth, more my youth, should I say.
Yeah, I mean, I think Soft Cell was a big influence, wasn't it? That early album, Non-Stop Erotic Cabaret, is quite an important album.
I mean, I hadn't heard anything like that at all, you know. And it's so sort of pumped up as well, and also all of the lyrics in that were all about nightlife.
Yeah.
And I know for me as a young, wherever I was, I hadn't yet gone out partying, and there was all these words about partying, and I just, and this sort of world outside, and that always sounded very interesting to me. So, but also the music was really kind of dance floor, really.
I think me too as well. And obviously, I don't know, you probably don't remember, but like round Soho at that time, that record was all about going out to sleazy nightclubs in Soho. And to be honest, you'd walk around Soho in the early 80s and you'd hear that coming out of all the peep shows and the sleazy sort of bars. It almost was the soundtrack to Soho for at least a year or so. You'd hear CD films coming out.
Well, I knew there was CD things. I knew Soho obviously as a young child because we were always up there. Well, that sounds terrible. But what I mean by that is my mum worked around there, and so we were just often in that area.
Yeah.
So, but I always knew there was CD things going on behind them doors, but I wasn't quite sure what they were.
Yeah.
And obviously that kind of album alluded to that.
Yeah.
And I think I picked up on that, and obviously that was nightlife and the party world, and and not just the sleazy stuff, but
yeah.
So that for me. How about you?
Yeah. I guess I was sort of aware a little bit of the electro when it was going on. But I think it really kicked in for me sort of like the acid house that was coming through sort of like 86, 87 onwards.
Yeah.
That really, because before that I was more kind of into like sort of like my indie music. I was into sort of like Bauhaus, Joy Division, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And even at that time, it was, you've had this every sort of decade or so. There's always that thing of like, it's band music versus dance music, and it's all. Well, I really remember it was one of those moments, and then like, this acid house stuff came from somewhere else, and it's like, whoa, what is this? Just suddenly got switched onto it, and then.
Where did you first hear that then?
Probably.
Because where were you at this time?
I was actually living up in Stafford,
Yeah.
up in the Midlands then. I'd moved up there when I was 13 from Watford. So this is when I was about 15, 16 and sort of hearing House Nation at like kind of like the first discos we were going to as like 16-year-olds, and then sort of hearing like, you know, Farley Jack Master Funk and all those sort of ones. And then it's just like, I'm into this, and then kind of came down to London from there in '89. great time. So I just came down sort of like the end of the summer of '89. And just kind of started DJing then, and then I came down to go to uni over in East London, and I met another guy I wanted to sort of get into DJing when I was in Stafford. I was just inspired by this music. And then I came to London, I met a guy at uni, this guy called Mark, and he had some decks in his room, and we were just kind of talking about, he was kind of into like soul, and it was really interesting because he was like from Slough, and he was talking about like northern soul and like Wigan, and I was like, at the time I was a bit like, oh, that's just that soul music, because I come from the sort of indie side of things. It's like, you know, dark industrial sounding kind of music, that sort of stuff I couldn't really relate to, but I just come from Stafford, and all these people I knew, a couple of places I was sort of like, I was working in a bar, I was working in this pub, and like all the DJs there were like all northern soul people who'd been going up to Wigan. Even Stafford itself had this history of northern soul, which I kind of got a bit of, but he was just kind of playing all these northern soul records and going, wow, it's all this stuff from up north, and I was just like, this guy kind of come from there, but you know, was kind of down south into that.
It's weird, like the northern soul stuff, because I didn't hear it until like the mid '80s. But yeah, it has a big influence on all this sort of scene. But yeah, like you said at the time, you may be a bit more territorial in like the music that you like. It's hard being open to all sorts of stuff.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it?
I've got to like that more in later years, like mainly through you two, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, kind of really like it, really relate to it. But
I know when I found, you know, when you're talking about acid house, just that feeling of, like you say, you find a genre that means something to you, and I definitely found this sort of electronic music. I didn't understand what it was, you know, the way that DJs were mixing it, you know, I didn't really understand. You know, you kept feeling like you'd hearing the same tune again, and it was like, wow, is that tune coming back in, you know? And it was just, I just didn't understand. I didn't understand it, and it sounded so futuristic. So I mean, I'm talking more sort of, well, I guess just Chicago and Detroit sort of kind of stuff. And for me, it was this party in Woolwich, and it was just in a student union bar, probably really low level. Actually, funny enough, though, the guy who used to DJ was Mickey Finn, who's obviously a very famous sort of hardcore DJ, whatever you want to call him now.
Yeah, exactly.
But that was one of his first gigs, I imagine. But anyway, it was a small little party. But I just remember it was so dirty and sweaty, and it was very local. You know, it was just in Woolwich, in this sort of South London hall. And hearing that kind of music in that sort of environment was just like, yeah, this is what I'm into. This is the future at the time.
You're right about that thing of like just not knowing what it was. I remember like similarly being down at Heaven, Rage on a Thursday, and it was like February and Groove Rider, and just playing kind of all the acid house stuff a bit later on. This is probably '89. And just really not understanding how this music was made at all. I mean, not even probably being able to hear the mix between one tune and another. Obviously, it sounded seamless, and it probably was, but
it probably wasn't.
It probably wasn't. I remember at the time as well, I bought some tapes, like tape packs from like in Camden, like just like DJ mixes at the time, and I pulled one out a few years ago. And it's actually by someone who's quite a well-known DJ, and I listened to it, and the mixing was appalling. So I'm not going to say it was. But I remember like that mix actually being all right, like tune-wise.
No, you could maybe get away with it there.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it wasn't bad, but just by today's standards, it's like, you know, stuff was a bit out, which is fine, but then stuff was really out, and just, you know, quite...
But it was just that thing of samples of tunes, and you would just keep hearing reoccurring about an hour later, and you'd be like, how's that happening, you know?
I mean, Heaven's quite a key club in some of this sort of scene.
It definitely was for me. Heaven was a big one. I
mean, I think because it was one of the few clubs in London that had a really almost like a New York style sound system, like a proper sound system, whereas a lot of the clubs in London were cool clubs, but a lot of times the sound system was terrible. You know, whereas
it always sounded really good in there. And looking back, I didn't realise at the time, but definitely had that kind of New York feel.
I mean,
and obviously it was a gay club, you know, predominantly, and obviously it put on rave nights, but it still was a gay club. And again, I was a young 17-year-old going in there, and you know, and just seeing the openness of the gayness in the club. It wasn't what you saw on the street, you know, in the late 80s, you know, or at least not in Woolwich, you know, not obviously, you know, but what I mean is it was all, but at the same time there'd be rave kids like me who were just young kids in their jeans. We weren't bothered about dressing up or anything, but then there'd be next to the gay guys just having a really good time, proper giving it with their gear on, you know. But we were listening to the same music, you know, and it obviously that's you know, an after. Well, a bit of the sort of after disco bit, I guess. But
well, I remember going there a few years before that, '85, going to this club called Pyramid, and that was on a Wednesday night. And upstairs, it was all like the new wavy indie sort of stuff. They play a bit of stuff like Nitz Rev and stuff like that.
I went to Pyramid because I'm sure that went on until like a few years after that.
Yeah, 85 to 88 or something like that, I think it went. And it was Colin Faber DJ'd there.
Yeah,
Mark Moore DJ'd there.
See, that's all a bit before
I think
me.
he was downstairs actually, but I don't know. But that's meant to be the first club in the UK to play house. You know, on the Wednesday. That's meant to be.
Makes sense.
There's a little. I don't know if you've seen that little map. They got like the house. Of all the different house clubs.
Oh, I have
25 years a house.
Yes.
Pyramids at the very bottom, you know. But definitely, I'd hear all these tunes down there, and I think it was all the early house stuff, you know.
And obviously, Heaven a little bit later did all the thing with early, well, I guess hardcore into early jungle, wasn't it? Because it was all Goldie down there, and you know.
Yeah.
Fabio and Groove Rider, you know, and they all moved into that a few years later in the 92, 93. Rage was still going, but it moved on into that, you know.
Yeah.
Well, when you look back to that time as well, I mean, from that time to sort of like, you know, 1991, 92, everything moves so quickly. You know, even to say like 93, 94, like jungle happening, it's like a lot of different things happened like each year.
Well, I remember we used to go down there on a Monday night. That must have been the end of the 80s, 89 or 90 or something.
It's
like
89, 90, but what was the night called? It was
Carl Cox DJing on a Monday night, wasn't it?
Free deck mixing. It was Carl Cox. I can't remember what it was called.
Earth? No.
It was a quite rubbish name like that.
Something like that.
But it was a good party.
Some might disagree.
No, but you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, the sort of first places I started playing at sort of early hardcore places like Labyrinth, and then sort of not long after that I'd be playing Labyrinth, Slime Time, which happened down at what used to be called Busby's, LA, well then it got called LA2 and it got knocked down, became a tube station. As with many a club in London, like, well, it's actually going to be a crossrail station, isn't it? Just like that massive building. Yeah. Astoria obviously as well, just gone. But
rest in peace.
I know, it's such a shame, such a wicked building and a venue. But yeah, sort of like there, and then kind of as sort of like quick sort of techno kind of quickly kind of sort of developed alongside, and sort of after the first sort of hardcore stuff I started playing sort of regularly down at Eurobeat 2000. And
what sort of years are these, just to be clear, just for timelines and stuff like this?
Yeah, I guess with like Labyrinth, that was sort of like 91, 92, and I was doing a few places before that. Helter Skelter I used to go up to sort of every like once a month up in Milton Keynes. They used to have a main sort of like, you know, hardcore room which kind of turned into jungle and happy hardcore, but upstairs they had this room called the Technodrome, which is kind of like legendary, and I used to play there once a month with people like Loft Groover playing, Producer, Knowledge in London, SW1 Club. That was brilliant. That was every Wednesday night. It'd go on to about 3 a.m. That was a really cool club. It's one of those clubs I just remember like going there and really liking it. But just really appreciating the fact that it's like, this is one of those clubs that's kind of going to be kind of just historic. I mean, they're all historic.
Did you think that at the time?
I did. I remember like the SW1 Club, it had like the sort of
I remember the balcony.
The balcony. I remember just standing up on the balcony after being going there for probably about 6 months, and just actually I breathed in that moment and said like breathe this moment in, because this is like a legendary like club, and like it won't be here forever, as with all of these things.
Yeah.
And obviously been through loads of things like that, but I just really remember like going like, just breathe it in, soak it up, going like, you're here, and I can really remember that moment. Like, you know, it's but it was really good. Like every techno DJ sort of from around the globe would come and play there. Colin Faber and Colin Dale were like the residents, and then loads of like UK techno DJs, but then also loads of like hardcore DJs would come and have a go at doing a techno set. Like, you know, I've already mentioned them, but like Groove Rider definitely did, I think Fabio did as well. Kenny Ken did a techno set. Like, they, you know, everyone and did really good sets as well, because it's, you know.
I think what was interesting that time as well, there was loads of clubs that are actually on in the week. Like I said, the club we used to go at Heaven, we talked about with Carl Cox earlier on a Monday. I remember that just being packed on a Monday night, and people going absolutely crazy, like 3 a.m. when they finished it. They put the lights up and people still going crazy. And then, I used to go to clubs on Tuesday. There was like Knowledge on Wednesday, that'd be busy. You talked a bit about Rage, which comes up in like maybe a year or two later, which was at Heaven on a Thursday. And all these clubs were packed during the week. It was almost like a lot of the really good clubs.
Yeah, I think those years, I think like I do remember on and off, like, so a couple of times I remember going like, I breathed the moment in, and it was like, I remember going like, look, literally there's a club every day of the week, Monday to Sunday. I remember a few times going like, this is mental.
Maybe
like,
my memory is wrong, but wasn't A Way of Life Saturday and Sunday? It felt like it went on forever. I'm sure that was all like all Friday night and all Saturday, and then it went all...
That's obviously, like, for people who don't know, there's a club called AWOL, which is A Way of Life.
Yeah, and that's probably 91, 92, 90.
Yeah.
And then it went on a few years later, I don't know. It was all sort of Randall and Kenny Ken and all that, them kind of people, early rave, sort of, yeah. But yeah, maybe it's my memory. I can't. Maybe it felt like it went on all weekend in a positive way.
Like they say about the 60s, like
yeah.
if you live through the rave years, you can't really remember anything. So the memories are a bit hazy at this point.
Right.
You know,
I'm just glad we're doing this interview because it means I can look back on this in 10 years time.
Exactly.
Remember what I was doing 25 years ago.
These are your memories. Yeah.
I know for me, really, like with DJing, my first sort of real experience of DJing was through pirate radio.
Yeah.
I mean, I was out partying, but quite quickly, I got involved with a pirate station, and I was quite lucky to get involved because, to be honest with you, I couldn't really mix. Well, I couldn't do it. No, really, I couldn't mix.
Yeah.
I like music and I like records, and I bought records, and I'd always bought records. And somehow I managed to get a show on then. You know, and you just go.
Well, how did you manage to do that?
I just met this guy. I met this guy. He just said, you know, he knew I like music.
Yeah.
And
because how old were you at this time?
17. I think I might have been doing a community radio show, so I was sort of playing records on there but not mixing, you know. It was kind of more, let's play this tune and then let's play this next tune, and obviously I was into raving and that music and the sound that I was hearing. So this is 89, I guess. And so he just went, yeah, come on. I guess because I was a girl, I was a bit of a novelty at the time.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he let me go on there, and when I got on there, some of the people now, when I look back, there's some people who were, you know, done very well for them. DJ Hype's one of them.
Yeah.
And he was just a young lad on the station, and he was a hip-hop DJ really, and he just sort of got into all the sort of early rave stuff, and I just remember being blown away because he was just there mixing and scratching, and it was just in front of me, and there's this sort of, you know, girl with no experience, just watching him kick ass really, just live and direct, you know, on the radio.
Don't forget, catch him again on Tuesday night between the hours of 10 and midnight, a show not to be missed. We've got a new tape machine in the house. Very professional on Fantasy. Right, starting off this afternoon, Santa, Feel the Sunshine. Tune the Stacey Fantasy 980, page lines open 081 840 7000 07 34 Right, massive a big shout out to everybody who's down the Dome on Friday. A few technical problems down there. Been completely sorted out for next week, so hold tight for that one. Big shout out to African Nightmare and Butcher if you're listening. Nice to see you Friday, yeah?
Everybody to the sun, that's right. Get there. Everybody to the sun, that's right. Get there. Everybody to the sun.
Living is a desperate thing, but you know the feeling love can bring. I said when you're floating through your life, baby, don't you shout too loud, oh baby. You're mine, you're mine, you're walking on sunshine. I've got to tell you that you're doing fine, walking on sunshine. You're mine, you're mine, you're walking on sunshine. I've got to tell you that you're doing fine, walking on sunshine.
And for me, that was just amazing. But anyway, that's kind of where I first got into DJing, and I was like, right, I didn't want to be DJ Hype, I never wanted to be DJ Hype, but I did realise that I needed to go and mix, you know, and I went and found some money, basically. I bought some decks and
Yeah.
shut myself up in a room.
Well, Fantasy was
months.
quite a big station, though, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. It was.
It wasn't just a small part of London, was it? It's pretty much broadcasting all over London, would you say?
It was all there. It was all over London. I mean, at the time, and when you look back, it's probably only a couple of years that it really was an important station. But at that time, everyone was listening to Fantasy. It was Centre Force.
Yeah.
And and I was listening to lots of Centre Force, and then Fantasy sort of came in, and as far as London goes, everyone was listening to that.
Yeah.
And if you were going out to party, you'd listen in, and they'd tell you where to meet up and
Yeah.
give you phone numbers, and and if you wanted to be out and about, that was the place to hear it from, to hear the information from, and also to hear that music.
Yeah.
So I was very, lucky to be on there, really.
Yeah, it was weird that Fantasy only lasted a few years, but...
Well, I think often when you look back at these sort of things, you realise they were quite short little blips.
Yeah, sure. Jason, what about you? Some of your early pirate radio, the first times you sort of went on there?
Yeah. I mean, it's quite interesting. We have a lot of parallel history even before we met. But I used to be on Pulse FM.
This is Pulse FM, broadcasting on a frequency of 90.6.
Caught me talking. That was the sound of It's Not Over from Citadel of Chaos, forthcoming on Bombastic Plastic. And before that, Junk, Do It out of Southampton on Junk Records. This one exclusive, first hearing on the radio, the Bass Invaders remixed by Mad Ragga John, I believe, on Rise Productions.
Maybe there's 6 months between, but yeah, like Pulse FM started, I think, either 1990 or 91. I can't really remember, but I think probably end of 1990. But yeah, I was on there for a couple of years. I think I got on there sort of like in the days of like what we call Euro, all the sort of days of all the sort of like early Belgian and Dutch kind of what was kind of hardcore or pre-hardcore, the precursor to UK breakbeat hardcore, all the RNS stuff. And I was sort of on there. Like I was actually on there 3 times a week, and then I was on there. Like it's kind of an East London station. I was on there as like hardcore, like evolved. Like we had like Shut Up and Dance coming down, bringing a box of promos. Like Strictly Underground, just bringing a box of promos, just leaving the studio. Like everyone just take one or your names on it for each DJ.
Yeah, I've got lots of records like that actually. I was doing it 3 times a week. I don't know how I managed to do it. I think I had a show on Tuesday evening, a Friday one, and a Sunday one, which was like midday till 2 p.m, which was like ended up being quite a struggle because around the time I got on the radio, I just started getting really busy DJing. I was like DJing up and down the country, mostly UK or around London, but sort of doing a couple of gigs on the sort of like the Saturday night, and then coming there just like go in there before do the show before I go to sleep sort of thing. And
Sunday in the afternoon when you've been driving about all night DJing all over the country is probably not the one, is it?
Or maybe it's a bit more local in London town, but either way it's a struggle. It's fine. But that all kind of came to an end because the DTI kind of do
you want to just say what the DTI is for those who don't know what they are?
Department of
Trading industry.
Yeah,
and
they're called Ofcom now, basically.
Yeah, I mean, what they are, they're basically like the kind of regulating like the FM frequency radio waves, so only licensed stations can be broadcasting on there. So they would come down and shut down the pirates, and they'd take down their transmitters, but then they do studio busts as well. But they got me one time, I think probably in '93, early '93, and yeah, basically like took all my records, took all the studio gear. I had to go to court, got given a fine, so I kind of had to sort of stay off the radio for a while. I did a couple of shows I did a couple of little kind of pre-recorded shows.
Right.
But yeah.
But I mean, I think people forget at that time, I mean, it really was a sort of cat and mouse game, wasn't it? About shutting down the stations. Having a pirate radio station was hard work, wasn't it? You know, you had to keep putting the transmitter back up and...
Well, you had to be dedicated. It wasn't just the DTI as well, was it? It was looking for your... Sometimes the other pirate radio stations would actually...
But you'd have to be really dedicated to people who were running it.
Yeah.
They'd have to be on it. So they have to be quite nutty characters, really, to be sort of running these from tower blocks, generally in East London.
Yeah.
You know, in squatted flats, more or less. It was quite, you know, and as a DJ you had to go with your records in a bag, you couldn't go with a record box, you know, you had to not look like a DJ, whatever that means.
Obviously we used to do a pirate radio show together in the mid-90s on Chilling FM. And yeah, we'd always end up in some weird places doing the show, some abandoned council flats. I remember one, I think about the 25th floor by Tower Bridge and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember that one?
Yeah, I do remember that one, yeah.
That might have been when it was the Frank Bruno fight, but I think that was... I don't know if you remember that, but...
Oh yeah, you're testing my memory with that. But yeah, various tower blocks, and it was always shifty, you know.
Yeah.
But I mean, I almost feel like the tower blocks were a lot worse then. I don't know if that's true, but just in my brain, it was just they just always were really rough blocks.
I think the thing was a lot of times I remember we'd be in these empty sort of flats with not much lighting, and you'd normally be in the kitchen or something, and
there'd be no toilet or something.
Yeah, and you'd just be doing the show, and you feel like, you know, no one's actually listening or anything, but obviously. We were broadcast all over London.
No, and still now you suddenly meet someone and they go, oh yeah, I used to listen, you know.
Yeah, I've got a tape. I've got a tape of you,
yeah.
or you go around and people recognise your voice.
Yeah.
I remember that a few times.
I mean, I love radio for that. I think it's amazing, you know.
Good days, pirate radio.
Pirate radio, and it was where you listened for good music, wasn't it? It was new music. It wasn't yet at the stage of just playing old music.
And it also needs just like mentioning, and it's obvious, but then it's not obvious as well. But this is like the days of like no internet, you like tune into a station, you'd be like, wow, that's that stuff you don't hear anywhere else. So it's like, you know, it's kind of like a secret world. It's like you kind of don't have that anymore because
no Shazam or like internet search on a name you've heard or anything like that. You might hear one name, isn't it? Yeah. And you'd be like, what's Salsa House? What's Salsa House?
Yeah,
you know,
you Google it by. I mean, that's all brilliant as well. There's nothing wrong in that.
No,
but just it's nice to like. I always look back on those things and think, oh, that's just like, you know, in a romantic way. Like I remember like in '89, like cars driving past playing, say like early like rave or acid house, and you'd be like, oh my god, they know. Like you know, it was like that kind of. Yeah. They know about that thing. You know, it wasn't like.
Well, definitely, pirate radio's responsible for loads of genres of music or getting it out there. Yeah. So everything from like
And I think it still shows out. I think even like there's a plethora of like internet radio stations, but that's where the new undergrounds are now. It's different to then, but it's like it's kind of in a way everything's kind of obscured now by the mass of like channels and music. It's like it's the underground's hidden in there. But,
I remember friends of mine who'd come and visit from abroad, and they'd always tape all their pirate radio because like. London, I still don't quite understand why that we had pirate radio and virtually nowhere else does. I mean, obviously there must be little pockets of other pirate radio somewhere, but even now there's still loads of pirate radio on the dial. But back in the 80s and 90s, there's literally, I don't know, 20, 30, there'd be like amazing amounts of stations all broadcasting all sorts of music.
You'd see transmitters all over London, you know, if you looked, if you paid attention, you know.
Yeah, so almost the DTI, they were sort of, they were putting out fires all over the place, but they kept popping up, and people were so dedicated to doing the music. Because like you said, you get your records stolen or your transmitters nicked by the DTI, but then some of them, they'd have a new transmitter ready to go within the hour, within a couple of hours. The station would be off, and they weren't cheap. That lot of them transmitters, were they? Like £300, £400, £500 back in the day for a transmitter. Yeah. That gets stolen. Yeah, so you're still DJing on one of the, well, it is the longest running pirate radio station in London, aren't you,
Is it,
Jason?
isn't it?
Yeah. Cool London.
Yeah.
Doing,
Formerly known as
formerly,
Cool FM.
yeah.
Cool with a K.
Cool with a K, indeed. Yeah, I've actually, I normally do a weekly show on there. I've sort of, just because of other commitments, I've just been doing shows here and there. But I was actually doing a show last week, which was actually from the White Cube Gallery on Bermondsey Street.
Right.
So Cool London Studio is basically, has been kind of transported to like this exhibition by Eddie Peaks, and like he's like somebody who grew up in Finsbury Park, and he used to listen to Cool FM as a kid. So he wanted to transport the studio into there. So basically for 2 months, Cool London, Cool FM is like broadcasting daily from the studio as part of the art. It's kind of part of the
In
exhibition.
a completely legitimate, art studio, high level art studio.
This,
Well, let's
Yeah.
just be clear,
I mean,
they're not a pirate station anymore.
No, of course they're not. But they did have a history.
No, yeah, of course they is.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, would you have ever seen that 25 years ago? Or
No.
whatever? Them being in an established gallery
No, for sure.
in London.
I mean, I'm waiting for the DTI to come in and just take my USB stick. But
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
don't take the vinyl.
Well, yeah. Obviously, USB is a lot easier to replace than like the vinyl back in the day.
Well, funny enough, the box.
I'd be devastated if I lost all those files. The amount of time it took me to compile all those files.
But that box that the DTI took off you in 1992, what year was it?
93, I think.
93. I still, over the years, we'd be out and we're digging, and you'll suddenly find a record, and you'll be, that was in that box that the DTI took, and you will find them, and you have more or less.
Well, you reckon they were like the original ones?
No, not the
Oh,
right
but just-
tune, just
yeah,
the
yeah.
tune, because imagine you have a box and
Yeah.
and that's just taken away from you, it's
Yeah.
completely, and he's managed to, most of them you've managed to pick up.
Yeah, I think there's possibly I bought loads back at the time because I just needed them to play.
Yeah.
And then quite a lot of the labels were actually sending me stuff anyway. They just sent me copies again. I even got sent records I didn't even ask for. It's quite good.
A way to get free records.
Yeah, if only there was Discogs then. No, I kept them. But yeah, there was probably about 5 or 10 that I just didn't get and couldn't get, and then never got around to it. And yeah, it's just like you say, just like pick them up. But I think there's I even wrote a list down somewhere, like all the ones that went just after it happened. Well, I've got to remember which ones they are. But there was one. I think there's one. It's I could probably track it down actually. I think it's sort of like a quite hard techno one. I still haven't got around to get.
Yeah. Okay, let's just talk about your label, Rag and Bone Records. Just tell us how you started it.
Okay. Well, I think we left London in '99 for a couple of years because we'd kind of both got to that point. I guess it's that partying and DJing and we just needed a bit of break. I guess our ears needed a bit of break from everything, wasn't it really? Mm. And we went away for a couple of years and then we came back really quite infused to do a new label. When we came back to London, there was lots of new stuff going on. There was new electro. It was sort of early days of garage. There's lots of sort of weirdy kind of break stuff going on. All that kind of very pre-dubstep kind of time. And London was very, very interested. And we came back to that and we both were sort of wanting to make music, which we did for a couple of years. And then in 2003, we kind of started the label, didn't we? Releasing Jason's release first. And just with the view of, we just really wanted to release our own music.
Yeah.
And it was kind of that we didn't really know who else would release it. There wasn't any other labels at that time really that we felt would want to release our stuff,
Yeah, obviously I put out a release myself and you, Jason, was that 98, something like that? We did some tunes on my label, Unearthly.
It was a nice collaboration.
Yeah, so I believe that's going up on Musicoin, so you should be able to check some of those.
Yeah, and that's
old
quite a
tunes.
sort of techno-y kind of... Was it electro-y?
Well, there actually is one tune on there that's got quite almost... I think it's almost like early dubsteppy sort of sound. There's a real weird sort of wobble sort of bass in
the
it.
Steppers one,
Razor Stepping, yeah. Yeah, I actually remember taking that record down to John Kennedy down at Big Apple Records in Croydon and all that. So I remember, which is another record store of the past.
Yeah, definitely.
Many of them. But so we kind of did the label and we started with your release and then I think mine was the second, wasn't it? And we kind of went a bit like that for a little while. And then we kind of branched out really. I guess while we've got a little bit of exposure.
Yeah, other people seem to come through who were sort of, I guess, sort of quite. We put out the stuff that was kind of blending kind of elements of techno, garage, two-step, electro breaks that Stacey was saying was going on at the time.
Yeah.
Fusing all those things together, and other people started kind of getting in touch who were sort of also kind of making tracks along the same lines, and then we started kind of, the label was going well. Kind of made sense to kind of like sort of expand it and release other people's stuff. So we have people.
What sort of artists were you putting out? What sort of names of people putting
the
tunes
early
out on
days,
Rag and Bone?
Obviously,
Black Mass Plastics. Yeah, Black Mass Plastics, Drop the Lime, Aaron Spector.
Yeah.
FZV.
Later days, Kanji Kinetic.
Yeah, so that's kind of more the mutant bass type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But kind of. I mean, it was running around those times for about quite a few years and just going through a few different scenes. Sort of kind of mutant bass stuff like Squirrel Gothos, Kanji Kinetic, and even sort of like when dubstep was a kind of in its first sort of wave, we were doing stuff like Excision, Starkey, Stagger as well.
Yeah, that was quite a big tune for the label, wasn't it? Stagger one.
Yeah, it did well.
Yeah.
They're all big tunes.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously, that was a bit later, and that was the beauty of the label, it wasn't just one genre, but it kind of it was where
quite varied, wasn't it?
It was quite varied, but obviously with quite a bass heavy kind of sound, wasn't it? But we just put out tunes we liked by other people, and I mean that really was the ethos. There was no other. We didn't care if other people liked it or not. It didn't really matter, did it? It was when we would sit on tunes quite heavily and go, okay. Well, and I don't know, wouldn't we? We listen for.
Well, they'd always have to be like, because you're doing vinyl, you've got. I mean, the way we were approaching the label was like, it's definitely got to be something that's like, it's a floor filler. And that's how we sort of approach kind of A&R in the tunes really, and I feel quite proud to think that pretty much all those tunes fit that kind of mould.
I mean, we would play them and DJ them out, wouldn't we?
If we were playing them sort of week in, week out.
Yeah, well, you're both DJs, so I guess that they were aimed,
and at our crowd that we were playing to, so it was like if we liked it and then they liked it.
Yeah.
No, and it was an extension of that, wasn't it? And, I was just thinking about another artist we released tunes by was King Cannibal.
That tune is fierce.
Yeah,
that tune really is still fierce. If you've never checked that tune, check that tune.
Yeah, Call Me Mr. Cold Blooded was that the B-side.
But yeah, that one.
Yeah.
It's your label.
What year was that?
That must have been, I don't know, that was probably 2007, 2008. So kind of breaks, but getting really dark and metallic, almost like kind of death metal, but sort of like 140 BPM. This guy called Dylan Richards, who also did stuff under the name of Zilla, and then went on to do stuff by House of Lanterns, which is this kind of like more recent thing. Really great producer actually. Sort of different people pop up and go like, that tune, that was such an inspirational tune, and it might be like the Stagger one, Sick of Sin, or it might be the King Cannibal one.
Yeah.
Lots of people are going to mention Aaron Spector. Yeah. Some of the Black Mass stuff. Even some of my stuff, I'm not really surprised. People go like, that tune, not really. But like a couple of NoYeahNo's tunes, Isn't It Powerful? That's kind of, definitely, I think it's one of the classics of the label.
Yeah, I mean, it was a big club that we all used to go to then, really. It was like the Thursday nights, I think it was Thursday nights then, wasn't it? Up at Plastic People.
Yeah.
Forward.
Forward, yeah.
Forward, yeah.
It's interesting, Forward, like going back to talking about clubs before. I had definitely having that experience of like in knowledge and breathing in the moment, going like, this is a club to be at. I remember like, because I was well trained in this art of like, breathing in the moment of a club. By then, I remember like being
very spiritual.
Can't go. Well,
if you breathed in at Forward, you'd probably be really stoned, because it was like literally all you could smell was weed down in that basement. Really,
and it was nice.
And it was a legal London club. I mean, it was completely. It wasn't.
The bass was really heavy down in that on that system.
Yeah, it's a perfect setup.
I mean, if anyone doesn't realise, Forward was the dubstep club of London. I mean, it was where it all happened. It was. And anyone in London at that time sort of saw that, wasn't it?
No, it's very true.
But it was only a very small place.
It was very small. And not even busy all the time.
No, I remember going down there, literally, I remember being there, and one time in the early days of Forward, there's like 20 or 30 people in there, and I realised it was like loads of my mates, like almost all the old people were in there, like all the youngsters were probably still at school, or like, you know, weren't going to go out on a Thursday night.
Well, I think it was an interesting like cross section. I think you're right. I think there was people sort of like more of our sort of like age group had been through a few things before there, but then there was also a lot of the people like, especially the new dubstep producers. They were the new younger wave of people, and it was like a nice sort of mix between the two.
Yeah.
You know, I remember sort of like John Kennedy used to run Big Apple Records. I'll be down there, and he sort of more our generation would be down there with like Hatcher, who's a sort of, you know, Hatcher and Scream and sort of new wave coming through making dubstep.
Straight out of Croydon, wasn't it?
Straight out of Croydon, but it kind of was Forward that was the kind of the focal point of obviously the Croydon scene, anyone else in London, and then as it became a bigger thing, it was everyone coming from, you know, around the globe really who was doing dubstep, you know, whether it's someone from America or Europe.
There's also a bit of the pirate radio involved, maybe like Rinse FM, or would you
Yeah, because
say,
it
or-
was a pirate then,
Yeah, it was a pirate, and that was almost. We talked about pirates breaking the new music, and maybe Rinse, I don't know, but in particular was
definitely
breaking that sound of the cold sort of dubstep sound.
Definitely, and I think dubstep also was very similar to sort of drum and bass, you know, just one of them massive genres that just comes in and changes everything.
Yeah.
You know, it sort of wipes the floor, whatever's going on behind. It doesn't mean that stuff's not valid, but it just it comes with a massive bang, and that's kind of what it did. And drum and bass did exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
And then it brought the producers with it,
Yeah.
and a new way of a new type of music.
Yeah.
And,
What was really interesting about that is that comparison to drum and bass. So when the sort of new young producers around that time who were, you know, like when Scream was starting out with Scream and Benga, they were like 15, 16, 17. You know, they were inspired by all this drum and bass, but they, you know, some of them were kind of making drum and bass to start with, but couldn't really break into that scene because it was so established. You had all the big DJs kind of like taking all the slots, and the producers were there. So like this kind of dubstep thing came about, and it just kind of like, it just wiped everything kind of clear. They suddenly had this thing of their own,
and all the drum and bass wanted to make the dubstep.
No, but they didn't to start with. Like, but like, what happened was like sort of like most of the people our generation were like, could not get their head around the dubstep thing because it was this halftime thing, like it's too slow, it's just too slow and plodding. Like everyone who was sort of like the new generation doing dubstep were like, yeah, this is great, because those people up there, they just don't understand it, they just ran away with it. And then eventually one or two people who were doing drum and bass kind of like trickled down into it, like trying to think who, there was a couple of sort of, but most of the drum and bass people were saying the same thing. They were like, I'm used to my sort of faster tempo, 170. It's only really in more recent years that like the drum and bass kind of scene has kind of like got into it more, and if anything, it's what's happening is like they're making dubstep now at like 170. Like it's taken like, you know, what, a decade to get to that point. It's quite interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, where were we? Rag and Bone.
Yeah, so Rag and Bone, obviously it's still going. I mean, you've been a little quiet on the vinyl the last few years, but you still think you're going to put some vinyl releases out, or
I mean, maybe,
because obviously things have
possible.
changed, and like digital's more in, and obviously we've got stuff like blockchain coming through. We got all sorts of digital music sort of streams now.
I think for us it's like just time, and like I've certainly kind of, it got to the point the label was like doing really well, and the artists are doing really well, but we actually were spending a lot of time kind of working other people's music and releases that kind of I you know, kind of sort of backed off a bit, and you know, I wanted to spend more. I was actually not spending time making music, so I kind of wanted to go back into that, which is sort of where I've kind of been at, you know, the last couple of years, is just kind of focusing on making the music and actually getting other people to release it. Like,
and actually vinyl's gone up and down, hasn't it? You know,
Yeah.
it's like there was one moment a few years ago where vinyl did feel like it was going out. There wasn't really much vinyl around, but again over the recent times, that's gone back up again, hasn't it? Even in the underground. I know obviously, you know, a lot of record sales are big record companies, etc.
Well,
but there still is a lot of underground.
Obviously, both of you like long-term DJs, and like we can see some records behind you, but I know you've got
a few more.
You got loads more sort of records, but you know, you sort of went digital for a while. You still do sort of digital DJing at points, and sometimes vinyl. I mean, I know. Well, I know you don't really discriminate between either of them. Really, it's all music in at the end. But
yeah, they both have their uses, really. I mean, I love vinyl, but, you know. But yeah, I guess I've never really said this on record, but I guess I am a digital DJ. Did I just say that?
Records are not nice to carry on a plane. through the streets of London
Yeah.
or wherever, aren't
Yeah,
they?
yeah.
You know, and also not everything's released on vinyl, so you know you have to. It's got to be about the tune, and that is the bottom line.
Yeah.
So you know, there's a place for both of them. Vinyl's wonderful, but so is MP3, so is a WAV. You know, it's all valid. And as a DJ, a tune's a tune.
So, well, as someone on the dance floor as well, like that, it doesn't matter what format it's played on. I think there's always this debate, and it's great. It's like, oh, vinyl's better than digital and whatever. And there are definite arguments for both sides, but it's almost like the debate is not really worth. It's not really worth kind of dwelling on too much, because like you say, a tune is a tune.
Yeah.
It's like, especially for if you're talking about dance floor music, it's like if the tune's moving people, like, you know, you could rip a tune off YouTube and play it. If it's a classic tune, like 90% of the people would not have noticed any difference. There'd be a couple of sort of like people more inside, you know, producers, engineers, sound engineers go, well, that sounds a little bit kind of different. But like, you know, years ago we used to listen to stuff on cassette, and that sounded really shoddy compared to like,
Wow.
you know, say vinyl. But now actually cassette is like all in vogue. So, you know, the difference between digital and vinyl is even smaller. You know, it's, you know, there's more difference between someone like who's like produced a well produced tune than someone that's not well produced. There's more difference there, really.
Of course, right? But then throwing the flip side to that is, if someone wants to put out your tune, you'd much rather them put it out on vinyl, wouldn't you? Than
Absolutely.
digital? You know, if you
Why
can,
is that then?
Well, it's the kudos of it, isn't it? And that's because of the history of vinyl. And it's like, there is that whole throwaway thing of digital, and the fact that there's no physical thing of it. It's like, you know, it's kind of like water. It's like, yeah, it's amazingly like versatile and like being everywhere around the globe. But at the same time, it can just disappear in an instant, like sand or dust, you know.
Yeah.
So, and you know, say 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years time, like, will those files even be in existence? You know, computers will change. Like, you know, it's like, just think of like computers like 20, 30 years ago. If you try and load up one of your projects off an old computer, so you need to get the old computer, you need to get the old software. It's like, there's loads of like old computer stuff that's like obsolete, because you know, even pre-floppy disks, like stuff.
Well, I've got loads of old CDRs from the early 2000s, and to be honest, I've tried putting them into computers, and they like new Macs, and they're just like, what is this?
Well, CDs do deteriorate as well.
And I know that some of these CDRs have like I've got loads of CDRs of unreleased music from some quite, you know, respected underground artists that are probably, I don't know. I don't know,
So
maybe we'll need to go out and get Pentium 2s, maybe that'd be the...
Yeah, or there could be some mad mega viruses that go on and wipe out a load of like data that's like before 2014 or something, and then all that data, because it's all digital, it's just suddenly gone because of some mad thing, like we lose all that history, you know, and all those stuff's got, but like physical, you know, you could bury these in the ground, they could go into landfill, they'd probably come back out and sound a bit scratchy, but probably work if you could get yourself a turn. In fact, these things, built like tanks, they'll be out there for like hundreds of years, you know.
Yeah.
And there's millions of them. There's millions of them. There's millions of those turntables. You know?
Yeah. No.
So all that will last probably, like, if digital becomes an antiquated thing and it's like, you know, I don't know what it comes after digital, like that stuff will still be.
So maybe in thousands of years, when they're excavating South London, they'll come across the Rag and Bone tomb, and they'll pull out some dusty 12 inches, and they'll be like, wow. This is what they were listening to in
Let's hope so.
2000s, yeah. All right. So you know, so what projects are you currently involved with at the moment?
Well, doing some releases on We Buy Gold, which is a great kind of London-based label that focuses on sort of Duke and footwork, but very much inspired, like, you know, UK. Well, I mean, it's kind of like that's quite a Chicago thing, but it's, you know, it's a global influence, and there's been a lot of influence here in London, so they're kind of like doing that, and I've been doing some sort of 160.
So how would you describe Duke and footwork, just for people who don't really know what it is?
Well, it usually quite religiously is around 160 BPM.
Yeah.
Quite frenetic sort of like drum beats. But what's interesting, it's very much a Chicago thing that's been there for decades, and it's kind of like really, it kind of evolves around sort of like the footwork kind of dance movement, which just Google it if you don't know it, you'll find loads of stuff. But it's kind of had a certain amount of people here in London have been influenced by, even in the UK. and we've had like, you know, a whole culture of like drum and bass, and it's kind of sort of like fused with that quite nicely. So that's kind of more the kind of London UK interpretation, a bit more sort of
Yeah,
drum
I
and
mean,
bass
I guess it's
orientated.
still like bass music, isn't it? That's designed for people to dance. I mean, I think like wherever we go with music for clubs, it's ultimately about people going out dancing to whatever the new sort of sound, whether it's 160 Duke or whether it's 140 dubstep, 180 jungle
Or
drum and bass, or
acid, house music of some sort, you know, presence unknown or anything like that. You know, there's lots of stuff, you know, isn't there?
Well, I think the
It's
thing
about
for
making
us-
people dance. Yeah, go on.
I think the thing for us where we're at is like this, we've got this whole history of music, and there's all this new stuff. We're like both constantly keeping up on whatever the new sort of interesting underground things that we feel are kind of interesting. Like it's just kind of, in terms of like DJing, that's kind of, I think that's, you know, mixing up all those different things, whether it's like new and old. I mean, you probably
I think
agree,
I think that's for both of you. That's definitely, I think that's a key factor. It's like you love all your history of you know, dance music from all different eras, but I know both of you, you're constantly looking for new stuff as well. You're not just stuck in the past. Obviously, you can
the part,
you can do like an old acid house set or this or that, but yeah, you're looking at new music, aren't you?
Yeah, and obviously at this stage, often things are produced in a better way, aren't they? Or, you know, than maybe in the past or in a different way. And there's always people putting new ideas together, and you've got to keep looking out for that. But obviously, the nature of the how do you put this under one big umbrella? I mean, dance music. What's the word you'd put it under for the last sort of 25 years? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's been around a long time, and
Yeah.
you know, and it's lots of ups and downs with that. You know, I mean, it's all basically house music, isn't it? Really, ultimately.
Well, it's house, but then I guess house was disco as well.
Well, house is, yeah, and how,
So-
where do you take it? But there's
and
lots
then-
of
yeah.
bumps and
Yeah.
you know, it goes up and down throughout that, and there's good and bad throughout that, and I think, you know, it's good to enjoy all of that, the past and the present, you know.
Right. All right. Thanks for the chat.
It's been fun.
Yeah, thanks for coming down and bearing with us.
Cool. Thank you.